I
Hi, I'm Chris Leatham, and today I'm hosting Community Matters. And today we have a very special guest, Michael Hansen. He is the president of Hawaii Shippers Council. And today we're going to talk a little bit about creating efficient shipping models or shipping systems here in Hawaii and what it would take to actually accomplish that. Michael, thank you for being on Think Tech Hawaii.
and thank you for having me on the show.
Yes, so we have an interesting situation. We are constrained here in Hawaii by lots of different things. One, of course, is the Jones Act, and the other thing is our ability to move ships in and out of port effectively, and the cargo that resides on these ships. So now, one of the things that we wanted to focus on today was, as president of the Hawaii Shipping Council, is how can we make our moving cargo and moving our ships more efficiently in and out of port.
The Hawaii Shippers Council represents what are known as merchant ship owners or cargo owners, not the ship owners. That's the people that we go to have our cargo moved.
Okay.
And of course, Hawaii is constrained by the fact it's an island in the middle of the Pacific, and that all the surface transportation that we need is by ship.
That's right.
We don't have rail, highways, pipelines, and those sorts of things.
And we have no tunnels that go around.
No bridges.
No bridges and no tunnels.
To the mainland.
That's right.
So as for our surface transportation, we're wholly dependent upon waterborne transportation.
That's right. And so
this is the situation that really defines how our economy works.
Yes, that's right.
Because of the logistics involved. Jay chose the title of Creating Efficient Shipping Systems in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Another way of saying that, which is used in a lot of different industries, is supply chain optimization. Meaning, how do you make the movement of the goods from the producer to the end user the most efficient?
Yes.
The World Economic Forum, which meets in Davos, Switzerland every January, famously.
Sounds like a beautiful place.
Yes, and all the
Good reason to go.
all the fanciest people in the world attend.
Yes.
But they released a report in 2013 valuing the supply chain, and what they discovered in the report that was written by the World Bank and some others is that they could, by reducing supply chain barriers, you could increase world GDP 6 times more than by eliminating all tariffs in the world.
So what you're saying, okay, what that statement basically says is the thing that is inhibiting our ability to have effective free trade in the world is not the tariffs, or where we have to do more free trade deals with the world. It's enhancing our ability to ship goods from port A to port B.
To move cargo
and
through
move
the
cargo
terminals
through the terminals, obviously. Yes.
All that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So improving the supply chain is an important aspect to reducing costs and making your economy more efficient.
But this is a real challenge to technology, isn't it? I mean, a lot of the things that we do now, we look for technology for solutions.
It probably involves humans more than technology.
Well, okay, all right, okay. So I had a wife who worked in the shipping industry, and of course we were always, when we were always discussing the logistics and the challenge of logistics and moving product from point A to point B, was that you had to make sure that you had the right product. There's a mountain of paperwork that had to be done in order to make sure that you had the right stuff on the ship and not the wrong stuff, and it was going to the right place.
Right.
And then once you got it to that port, then it had to be unloaded, whether it was in a container or whether it was like a ro-ro container where you had, or a ro-ro boat where you had to move things on and off by driving it or bringing it off with some sort of trailer. So where is the bottleneck in all of this?
The ships are very efficient themselves. We're not talking about so much domestically, but the whole of the international transportation system. Most of the congestion or the problems occur once the ship comes alongside into a terminal, and the cargo has to be offloaded and loaded at the terminal.
Okay.
And then the interconnection of the roadways to that.
Okay.
You mentioned the paperwork. Those are customs entries.
Yes.
Or customs export entries, and those are time consuming. The world system of trade has attempted to address some of those problems by having a harmonized tariff system,
Okay.
where all of the tariffs in the world
Uh-huh.
use the same wording for each category of goods.
Now, I've seen these books, and they're about yay thick.
Right,
Yes, they're
harmonized
quite thick.
tariff,
Yes.
yes. But that was a lot better than having 162 countries, each with their own book. So
Okay.
the harmonized tariff has made things a lot easier in terms of not only for the export documentation and the import documentation, but the steamship lines have tended to use those same categories for assessing freight rates.
Okay,
So
so-
it becomes a more standardized system that way.
Okay. Well, okay. So it goes to having a universal language and universal
Sure.
structure. Okay.
And-
we're
and-
gonna take a quick commercial
Sure.
break. I'm Chris Leatham. This is Community Matters. Stay tuned. We're talking about shipping and what we can be doing to enhance our ability to move product in and out of our ports and from our ports. We'll be right back. Aloha.
You're watching ThinkTech Hawaii, Hawaii's leading digital media platform for civic engagement, raising public awareness on tech, energy diversification, and globalism. Great content for Hawaii from ThinkTech.
Aloha, my name is Kirsten Baumgart Turner, and I'm the host of Sustainable Hawaii at thinktechhawaii.com. We air live on the internet and also on Oceanic Channel 16. I'd invite you to come for a fresh new show every Tuesday from 12 to 1 o'clock. I try to bring on guests that give us a different viewpoint on aspects of sustainability in Hawaii, as well as trying to unpack some of the difficult concepts of measuring and achieving sustainability, particularly with regard to sustainable economic growth and prosperity in Hawaii. Please join us every Tuesday from 12 to 1 p.m. Mahalo, aloha.
Aloha, my name is Reg Baker, and I'm the host of Business in Hawaii with Reg Baker. Business in Hawaii is a program that is positive stories about business in Hawaii. We're tired of hearing the negativity and why it's the wrong place to have a business. We talk about the positive reasons for having a business in Hawaii and how to be successful. We broadcast live every Thursday at 2 o'clock. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Hi, welcome back. Hi, I'm Chris Leatham. This is Community Matters here at ThinkTech Hawaii, and today's guest is Michael Hansen. Michael is the president of the Hawaii Shipping Council, and we're talking about some of the challenges of supply chain optimization. And when you talk about supply chain optimization, one of the things that comes to mind is the Jones Act. We've sort of been challenged with that since Hawaii became a state. Now, is that really having an impact on our ability to move goods in and out of ports?
It has an effect on the on the efficiency of the shipping system that we do have here in Hawaii. Hawaii has actually been tied to what are known as the coastwise laws of the United States since the Organic Act was passed in 1900. And
Wow.
yeah, and even during World War I, Prince Jonah-Kahiu Kalani'aneole, as the territorial representative in Washington, sought and obtained a waiver from the coastwise laws because so many of the steamers had been requisitioned by the War Department and were not available to provide civil transportation.
That created a little bit of a problem, didn't it? Yeah.
And actually, as a result of that, for a period of 3 or 4 years, foreign flag ships were actually hauling cargo and passengers between Hawaii and the West Coast. But to do that, you had to pay a customs fee
I see.
to compensate for the difference in the foreign flag rate versus the domestic rate.
Wow, the idea of foreign flagged vessels being able to sail into Hawaii
Well,
unencumbered by...
They sail into Hawaii every day of the week.
Yes.
But they don't carry cargo between Hawaii and the West Coast.
yes.
See, the Jones Act and similar laws prevent a foreign flag ship, or they exclude foreign-built and foreign flag ships from carrying cargo between 2 U.S. ports.
So you carry people, but they can't
No,
carry
no.
cargo?
There's a separate law called the Passenger Vessel Services Act of 1886, which prohibits that.
Oh, okay, so that was already in place. So these ships cannot move passengers or cargo.
Right, and there's a whole other, there's a long list of these so-called cabotage laws that prevent towage, salvage of wrecks, and numbers of different things from being done by non-conforming vessels.
Wow, that's amazing.
So it's a whole...
it's a whole gamut of laws that have been
Exactly.
put into place to protect the U.S. shipping industry.
And those are formally known in U.S. jurisprudence as the coastwise laws of the United States.
Ah.
The Jones Act, which is Section 27 of the Merchant Marine Act of 1920, is but one of those coast.
One of those. Wow, wow. I didn't even realize that there were so many of these.
Often what I do is refer to it as Jones Act cabotage. That way,
okay.
you know, your Jones Act is the best known of it. People know it by, know cabotage by the name Jones Act. So if you can express it that way, then you're kind of covering the waterfront.
Okay, so that's one of those things that have been out there for a while.
Sure.
But there are other things that constrain our ability to move goods.
Sure.
You know, roadways, for example,
Sure.
is one of the challenges.
And interchanges between the marine terminals and the roadways. One example is that the Young Brothers Honolulu Harbor Terminal, located in Kapalama, they're experiencing pretty severe congestion in that terminal now. And it's an issue that's come up with the Public Utilities Commission,
That's interesting.
which the Public Utilities Commission has said that they want to see Young Brothers address this issue before they grant the most recent application from Young Brothers for a general rate increase.
Well, they want to charge more, but they don't necessarily want to, or they're not
This is why
necessarily focused on improving
the
the efficiency.
PUC wants to find out
I see.
what's driving this. And what's happened there is what's called the turn time for the trucks that are going into the terminal to pick up or deliver cargo.
Right.
There's often the turn time is upwards of 3 hours, which is a really unacceptable period of time for a trucker to be to have their truck in the terminal, essentially doing nothing but waiting. And
Is that normal for most ports? Is that really that long of a duration?
The turn time is an issue around the world practically,
Oh.
and on the U.S. West Coast.
Now, has anybody figured this problem out? I mean,
Yes.
they developed optimized systems.
People are working on solutions to this. On the West Coast, typically the turn times at the very large container terminals there, which are massive compared to what we have here.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
I've seen those firsthand. San Francisco, Oakland area.
Yeah,
They're
and
massive.
Los Angeles, Long Beach, Seattle, Tacoma. But the turn times there are typically within an hour and a half. And the goal of most terminals and port authorities is to get it under an hour. And so what's happening at Young Brothers is really not acceptable at all.
Okay.
And because the Honolulu, Young Brothers operates an inter-island cargo barge service.
So let me play devil's advocate
Yeah.
with you on this issue, okay? Because you're saying it's not acceptable, but now there are different facets to this problem. I'm sure. I mean, one is the structure. Is there
The terminal layout.
The terminal layout.
Which is controlled by the Harbors Division,
Right.
Department of Transportation.
Technical infrastructure. I mean, do they have the right software systems in place to be able to do this communication platform?
Traffic flows.
Traffic flows. I mean, all of these things are part and parcel
Exactly,
to
yeah.
that problem, right? It's
Exactly.
not just any one thing. I would imagine
It's a variety of
enumerated
things,
list
yeah.
of things that need to be resolved.
Right.
Now, my question is there anybody actively working from the state with Young Brothers in a collaborative format to actually work and resolve these issues?
To a certain extent, but I don't think they're applying what's been learned elsewhere in the world as how to solve these problems, because the problem doesn't seem to be getting any better.
Really?
It may be that the terminal there at Pier 3940 is too constrained in its size. There's also construction going on next door for the new overseas container terminal.
Okay.
So that may be impacting them somewhat. So it's from the outside, it's really not possible.
Do we need to build another terminal? I mean, do we need to build
We are
another
building
pier-
another
we
terminal
are
right now.
building another one. Oh, okay. All right. That's good to hear. I had no idea, but I just thought that might maybe
But that's,
what we need to be doing.
that's an overseas terminal for the overseas container ships to call at.
Okay.
But anyway, it's the Young Brothers terminal at Pier 3940 was only designated. They were only moved in there in the early 90s. So they haven't been there that long in terms of what you would normally see in the harbor in terms of occupancy of different terminal areas.
Now, did they have the right infrastructure when they moved in there for the amount of payload that they were moving?
It was designed for them specifically.
Okay. all
So.
right. Now, has there been just a significant increase in the amount of containers coming in or cargo coming in that's made that a problem?
As a result of the 2008 recession, Young Brothers actually had a fall off in cargo volume. And so they've only
Okay.
recently been increasing. That's only recently been increasing.
Well, we got one person tweeting, Sun Powered, which says, what's actually being done to contact or correct the shipping issues and who's doing it? And I guess that's what we're talking about anyway, yeah. So we're.
Yeah, as the Hawaii Shippers Council,
Uh-huh.
representing merchant cargo interests, we do raise these issues at the legislature and elsewhere.
Now, what is the legislature's take on this issue? Have we passed any legislation, significant legislation in the last few years to help address some of this?
Not in regards to this area, but for example, the Inter-Island Ferry.
Uh-huh.
For this session, there was 9 bills introduced related to ferries in one way or
But
another.
I thought we didn't like ferries in Hawaii. We had the super ferry, and we decided we didn't like the super ferry.
Well, with the demise of the super ferry, there's lots of people who had wanted to use it and still want some alternative to Young Brothers for surface transportation between the islands.
Well, but that would be competition.
Sure.
But isn't that another thing that we have a problem with here in Hawaii is competition?
And actually, a well-designed ferry system would compete in some ways with Young Brothers, but it would offer a faster way of moving cargo by ocean and a much less expensive way than by air.
Right.
So it's kind of in between what Young Brothers are doing and what the airlines are doing.
But-
it gives you another
Right.
alternative of moving by surface more quickly than
Yes,
Young Brothers can.
but, and I laugh at that only because the whole point of the super ferry, or the big game changer, was that it enabled inter-island commerce on a daily basis. In other words, you could have a bakery on another island, ship that vehicle with all that bread on that boat, come over here, sell your bread and your merchandise, come back in the evening, put your truck back on the ferry, and head back over to the other side. It actually created an opportunity to grow and to enhance inter-island commerce because it was so inexpensive to operate. Isn't that what we would be talking about again? And wouldn't that also sort of be rejected by the environmental groups or by?
Well, the legislature, though, there's one bill remaining,
Uh-huh.
Senate Bill 2618,
Okay.
which is calling for a feasibility study for implementation of an inter-island ferry system.
Okay.
The
So we're going to study. Here's why I laugh. Only because when you talk about studying the feasibility of doing something that
Sure.
we had put into place previously, and then sort of got kicked down the
There,
road.
there are many questions about the Hawaii Super Ferry.
Yes.
Whether it would have ever proved to be operationally and financially successful. There were real problems with its operation.
Uh-huh.
And
But there were also a lot of bureaucratic challenges that they had to
Yes, but
encumbrances to their
even
ability.
eliminating the
Uh-huh.
court case that finally put them out of business
Uh-huh.
and dealt the coup de grace.
Right.
They were not generating enough passenger and cargo traffic to pay for the service.
I see. Now, is that because of, now, when you talk about the feasibility, then you're talking about making sure that, one, there's going to be enough commerce going back and forth, and that it's going to be able to charge rates that would make it
Feasible.
commercially viable?
Well, the bill as it was written by the Senate was comparing the Hawaii situation to the Alaska state and Washington state ferry systems.
But their ferry systems are
They're
a little different.
They're state-owned,
Uh-huh.
state-operated, and for the most part operate within protected waters of Puget Sound
Okay.
and also the inside passage to Alaska.
Now, but if that's the case, then you really don't have a competitive system,
We
do you?
filed extensive testimony pointing that out, and nobody paid a single bit of attention to it. I mean,
I guess it's just not relevant.
the House ended up amending the Senate bill and asking for the feasibility study to also include intra-island ferry service, particularly from Waianae to Honolulu.
But that's a very different issue. Now, you're talking about intra-island. That's more of a
these are-
passenger or commuter situation, isn't
Yeah,
it?
these are apples and oranges.
Yes.
And the Senate on the 14th filed a notice with the House that they were in disagreement over this.
Oh, so they didn't like the changes that were made.
Yeah,
now,
the
but of
Senate-
course, that's what conference committee's for, right?
And it'll go to conference.
It'll go to conference committee and they'll
There's
hash it out there.
still no dollar value.
Uh-huh.
And this, the reason we have a bill to this session is because the previous session, there was a resolution requesting that the State Department of Transportation study the feasibility of an inter-island ferry.
So now we have a bill to do a feasibility study.
Right, and the Department of Transportation informed the Senate, well, we can't do this without funding. So a funding mechanism means a bill.
So it always comes down to money, doesn't it? At
Of
the end of
course.
the day, yes, it does.
And,
well, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Sure.
And we're going to come back and let's talk a little bit more about this bill and some of the challenges that it's going to take to get a feasibility study actually accomplished. I'm Chris Leatham, and this is Community Matters, sitting in for Jay Fidel here at Think Tech Hawaii. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just one moment. Thank you.
Aloha, I'm Keli'i Akina with the Grassroots Institute of Hawaii, and one of our delights is to be partnered with Think Tech Hawaii and produce programs every week. Every Monday at 2 o'clock, we have a show called E Hana Kako, which means let's work together. So we bring people from all across the nation and the country, and certainly throughout the islands, together here to talk with them about how to work together, and how to work together to do the following: to build a better economy, a better government, a better society. So if you're interested in the research of our think tank, the Grassroots Institute, or if you're interested in how that's applied at the governmental and community and business levels, you'll enjoy the fascinating conversations with our guests on E Hana Kako every week on Think Tech Hawaii at 2 o'clock on Mondays. Until our next show, I'll see you. Aloha.
Hi, I'm Chris Leatham, and we're here with Community Matters here on Think Tech Hawaii, and today's guest is Michael Hansen. He is the president of the Hawaii Shipping Council, and Michael, we're just, this is a very enlightening conversation that we're having about shipping and the challenges that we face with shipping. And we were talking a little bit about this feasibility study and legislation before we left, and some of those challenges, because we know that the legislature, that anytime that we create a bill, it's a sausage factory, and things get taken out and put in, and by the time you finish at the end of the session, you've got a bill that looks very different than what you started with.
Sure.
In this case, you said we started with 9 bills, and we're down to 1.
Right.
So have we taken the language from 9 different bills and shoved it into one that's kept alive, or have we sort of eliminated some of that?
To some extent.
Yes.
But the idea is that as the bill progresses through the legislature and various committees,
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to be improved.
Yes. Sorry, I'm laughing about that, but sometimes you end up with something exactly opposite of
the
what you
opposite,
intended to
yeah.
do in the first place. So.
Anyway, what so it's there's a disagreement now between the Senate and the House
Mm-hmm.
regarding Senate Bill 2618, which calls for a feasibility study of the inter-island ferry
Now, would you
service.
support the bill as it is, as it currently resides, as it sits now with the current language?
We see a lot of problems with it. First
Mm-hmm.
of all, it's calling for a state-owned and operated ferry system. There's no provision in the feasibility study in the bill.
Can we have a state, let me ask you, can we have a partnership between the state and, say, a private entrepreneur?
The way this is
entity,
handled,
entrepreneurial entity?
the way this is handled around the world is that a government authority will say that they want a ferry service in particular areas. And then they may study a feasibility so that they can put together what's known as a tender or a request for proposals.
Right.
And then private operators can respond to those tenders and say, we can provide you with this ferry service, it'll cost you this amount of money. We expect to get so much from the fare box, and then in addition to that, we may need a subsidy of some kind to operate a service at this kind of a level, whatever might have been specified. Mayor Bill de Blasio in New York City just did this with a New York ferry service.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
we're
And
talking
we know New York is famous for ferry services.
Yes,
I mean,
but-
Manhattan and such.
But this is a very progressive guy.
Yes.
Who loves government, and yet he's sought a private operator through a tender. And this is something that we can easily do here.
But you have to sort of get past the politics or the label of being a progressive or something. It's really a matter of accounting, isn't it? I mean, you run the numbers and to see what makes good sense.
Yeah, but there's also an imperative on the government side of things to increase the purview of government. And one of the things they mentioned in the Senate bill is that the Washington State ferry system has 1,800 employees.
That's, well, you know, that sounds like Hawaii. We would love that because we love to hire more bureaucrats to come in and work for our government.
So, I mean, this is part of the imperative there is how many more people can we employ with the state?
I think this state has a mandate. They should employ everybody to work for the state government.
So, and from our point of view, this is not going to improve the efficiency of the supply chain here in the state of Hawaii.
And therein is the main issue.
Sure. But also,
Are we creating new efficiency?
Spending enormous. Washington State and Alaska State ferries suffer from a lack of funding. They've got old boats that they can't afford to replace, and all kinds of problems.
Well, you know, we have these old gray ships that are sitting out here in the harbor that nobody's doing anything with. I wonder if one of those could be converted into a...
You need modern built ships.
Do you?
And,
Okay.
and there's all kinds of new regulations coming into effect regarding emissions. So you've got to have the latest technology in terms of main engines and clean technology.
See, I think what we do is we repurpose one of these nuclear subs. That's what we do.
Anyway, so that's
Yes.
that's the issue there. And in relation to the Jones Act, what we suggested to the legislature in our testimony is that the states seek an exemption from the Jones Act cabotage along the same lines that was provided by the late Senator Inouye.
Well, without Senator Dan Inouye, though.
For Norwegian
Yes.
cruise lines. But hear me out. now,
Okay.
because that allowed a foreign-built ship to be flagged U.S. And still owned by a foreign corporation to operate a domestic service within the Hawaiian
Now, when
Islands.
you say foreign, you mean outside the United States?
Exactly.
Okay, all right, okay.
And for all intents and purposes, all of the big international companies that operate ferry services around the world are foreign. And
Okay.
there's really none in the United States that operate an open ocean ferry system, which is what we need here.
Which is what we, which of course is.
And so if you had that sort of exemption from the federal law for the Hawaii.
But wouldn't that create a slippery slope? I mean, I could just hear it now coming out from
Do you want a ferry service?
Yes,
or not?
yes,
Okay,
but
the alternative to that is billions of dollars of subsidy.
Yes.
And so you have to make up your mind. What
Yes.
do you want? And who knows if it'll work? I mean, it's like,
Right.
we won't talk
But
about
I can just imagine the lobbyists screaming from the halls of Washington, D.C. about
I understand.
creating an exception,
I
and
understand,
that would
yeah.
create a slippery slope, and we could eventually, hopefully, do
that-
something
but
to dispel the Jones Act.
That way you could get major ferry operators from around the world to respond to your tender.
Which would make perfect economic sense, which I think is fantastic.
The last issue
Uh-huh.
is H1 congestion.
Yes.
Of course, this is why we're building the rail, is to alleviate H1 congestion. What's happened is that you've got the main marine container terminals in Honolulu Harbor,
That's right.
and most of our industry and warehousing out in the Campbell Industrial Kapolei area.
That's right.
That puts an enormous number of containers on the road between Honolulu and Kapolei.
That's right. That's right. A lot of containers.
Yes. And so one of the issues regarding congestion is, can you relieve that congestion by somehow getting those containers off the H1 and moving them to Kalaeloa a different way?
So
For
that's
example,
that's a great question.
for example, in the Port of Long Beach and Los Angeles, right now the port authorities have gotten together and they're working on establishing a short rail service from the harbor area to the industrial zones that are just east of the main city, to get all those, as many containers as they can off the roadways and move them by rail to an inland container terminal.
Well, it begs the question.
Okay.
Is our rail system designed to
No,
move?
it can't carry, no.
It cannot
No.
carry cargo.
Yeah, the old ORN, Oahu Railway and Land Company, ORNL, could have done that, but of course that's not any longer. That track is not there.
Could we build another track? Would it be cost effective to build a short?
There is portions of that track that are available, but whether that could be done or not. The federal government, through the Maritime Administration, has got a program called America's Marine Highway Program. They provide subsidies, grants, and all kinds of stuff to private operators operating under in conjunction with some government agency like a port authority, or in this case of Hawaii, it would be Department of Transportation, to operate what are known as container shuttle services, containers on barge.
Okay.
And these are being developed at a number of locations around the United States.
So what you're suggesting is you put the containers onto a ferry?
No, onto a barge.
Onto a barge?
Yeah, what they do is what they're trying to do is move the containers out of the main marine terminal
Okay.
on a barge, as opposed to using the roadways
Uh-huh.
and the highways and taking them to a more remote location, which is less congested and closer to your customers.
And would also reduce the amount of turnaround time for the drivers who have to pick these up, because they wouldn't be sort of caught up in they would have a less congested system for which to pick up the containers and get them to their final destination.
Sure.
That makes a great deal of sense. Is it cost effective? I mean, I like the idea.
Yeah.
Can that be done on a cost effective basis?
It's being done at other places in the United States.
But we are talking about Hawaii. Let's remember what we're talking about. Can we do that here?
Anyway,
That's part of the feasibility study? Is that
No,
included in the feasibility
that has
study?
nothing to do with the ferry feasibility study whatsoever.
Oh.
Yeah, that's.
Can we get it in there? I don't know.
No,
Maybe.
no.
Do we want it in there?
Anyway, so,
Yeah.
but those are three examples of how you might improve the logistics and the supply chain optimization here in the state of Hawaii.
I think these are all fantastic ideas. I think they all are worthy of review. We have this bill. Is there any proposals? Is there a proposal to create additional legislation to maybe even address this last suggestion that you've made with moving more containers onto a alternative platform with a barge platform?
That I have I think I'm the only one talking about it, so that hasn't been broached yet at the legislature. Anyway,
see, this is what I love. I love having guests on like you, because you really have some very intelligent, insightful information to share, and I think these are some great ideas.
Anyway,
Yes.
if listeners are interested, we do keep a Facebook public group page.
Okay.
So you can go into your Facebook and search for Hawaii Shippers Council,
Okay.
and you will find us there.
And what's the best way for people who want to talk about this, either people at the legislature or if they have questions for you on these issues? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
They can contact me through Facebook if they're on Facebook.
Okay. All right.
And if not, they can send me an email. My email address is pacmar, Pacmar,
Pacmar
at hawaiiantel.net.
at hawaiiantel.net. Okay. All right. Pacmar at hawaiiantel.net.
Right.
Okay, and that's a great way for folks to get a hold of you to talk about these issues. Because
And the Facebook page is very easy.
is it? Okay. Well, you know, these are some of the interesting challenges for, you know, that come with living in a place like Hawaii,
Sure.
where you have a sort of an archipelago of islands, where we want to be able to promote inter-island commerce. And also we do have some challenges with either moving people or freight within this island, the island
Sure.
of Oahu, because we are so congested. And all of these sound like really great ideas. It does sound, though, that we need to keep working on this.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yes. And are there meetings, or is there a working group with the legislature that continues to work on these issues? Or
Well,
talk about
you know, we go to the legislature and testify on various transportation-related bills and resolutions or whatever may be up there. So, I mean, we're voicing our concerns as
okay.
representatives of the merchant shippers. Those are the people who own the cargo.
Now, what committee at the legislature, what committees in the House and the Senate are the ones primarily
The transportation committees.
transportation committees are tasked with addressing these
Sure,
issues?
yeah.
Okay. And then do you have anybody, is it the chair or anybody there within those committees that is sort of your go-to guy?
Not really.
Okay.
We don't have any. The most receptive people have been on the Republican side. Senator Sloan, for example, in the state Senate, and then also on the House side, Gene Ward.
Gene Ward?
Yeah.
Well, these are two very intelligent, very bright and articulate people who can really convey, I think, and this to me, though, really isn't a party-related issue. This is really fundamental to our ability to provide services to the
Sure.
people here within the state of Hawaii. You know, it was great to have you on the show today. I just, you know, it's just to see what you're doing, how you're addressing these issues. This is the kind of legislation that I think is really meaningful and going to sort of extend our ability to grow as a state
Sure.
over the long term. So I want to thank you again, Michael, for being on Think Tech Hawaii.
Oh, thank you for having me,
Yes.
Chris. It was enjoyable.
I had a great time with you today. It
Great.
was fantastic. So I'm Chris Leatham. This is Community Matters. Thank you for watching, and Jay Fidel will be back next week. So he will see you then. Thank you. Aloha.